Test, test. Alright. Making sure. We're starting here in just a few. Oh, the ad's starting. That worked. It's good to know that works. I'm coming in a little hot on there. There we go. Alright, we got 5 minutes before starting up the stream here. Just letting the ads get kind of done. I'm going to go fill up my water, and I'll be right back and starting promptly at 7. See you then. it's that time. Let's get to it. Hey, here we go. We're back. We're streaming. How do we do this? It's a new year. I don't know. Let's figure it out. Let's figure it out together. We got the ads out of the way. And I don't know if you heard up front, but I think I got it working. Where it lets us know, audibly, as well as visually, there's going to be an ad. So if I'm in the middle of the narration, now I can tell. I don't know if the music is a little too ambient. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more upbeat. Get us going. Because this is kind of... It's a vibe. I don't know if it's the vibe that I want. I don't know. Anyways, great to see ya. Man, we got a good show, if you will, today. A good stream. It might be a little short. But I have guests over at the moment, visiting for the holidays, and I don't want to stay up too late, blabbering on, right, and keeping them up, because they're sleeping right outside the room. So we're going to keep it short, but we're going to do two things today that I think are really cool. One is always cool to have an audiobook project as an audiobook narrator. I mean, come on, right? So we'll be diving into at least the first chapter of that, maybe the second. We'll see how the stream's going. Maybe we'll do one or two. We'll see. We'll talk about that one. You can probably see the title down below, if you will. The Second Bride by Kurt Dyer. And it's book 2 in a series. And it's an interesting one because book 1 was already done, but by a different narrator. But here's the thing. I'll let you in on a little insider knowledge. It's going to be replaced by me. That's right. Eventually, it'll get there. I promise. So, we're up on the YouTubes. Hi, if you're watching on the YouTubes. We're up on the Twitch. Hi, if you're watching on the Twitch. And we'll be reading some stuff today from that book, the chapters there. This will be kind of like a little primer as I get into narrating it. And you'll see this all over my social media if you follow me. I'll be blasting out little clips of, me narrating and, doing the social media thing as you do, right? So you're going to see a lot more about this book. Probably, if you watch all of my social media ad nauseum for you. Or maybe not, because you watch it all, right? Willing participant in the I'm sharing with you what I'm doing kind of thing, right? Which is kind of interesting. I used to look at social media as one of those necessary evils. You have to be on social media because nobody's going to know what you do unless you're on there and talking to them about it. But I look at it differently. In large part to Anna Clements, who is an audiobook narrator, but she also does some classes for those of us in the trade. And one of her social media classes, that's the one that I took. And it kind of gave me a different perspective on it. And I like that approach better. It's not a necessary evil. It's something I want to share with you. That's what social media is. Yes, it's so you know what I'm doing. Yes, you know that I'm working on a project. Yes, I am promoting certain things on there. Like I am an audiobook narrator, so I can do your book if you're interested. But I'm also sharing stuff about, my journey through that. Not just the professional side, but I visited a cool, restaurant. I'll share that too, right? Or my dog did something silly, I'll put that up there, right? A little get to know me. But more importantly, the whole thinking is summarized in what do I want to share? It's not necessarily that I have to, right? I'm not trying to advertise to people. I mean, vicariously I am, but I'm really just sharing with people that want to know. Well, what do I want to share with you? And after thinking about it kind of in that light, it changed my whole perspective on it. I'm like, no, this actually, it's kind of a fun thing now, right? I'm sharing with people that want to know the things that I want them to know, right? I want to share these things with them, and they want to see them. That's why they're there and willing participants in seeing this social media thing and experiencing these things together, really. And that's what it is. So I had a turnabout on that. A different way of thinking. And going into the new year, a lot of different thinking, I think, for me. I think this is going to be a really big year for me. Right now, I am taking audiobook coaching lessons from a Mr. Sean Pratt. If you are in the audiobook industry, you know that name. He is super experienced. He is the king of nonfiction audiobooks. They've done over 1,000 different titles at this point. And he's a coach, offers his coaching. I'm going through his courses. And I'm on the very last lesson. I'm going to be recording it probably next week will be my final recording assignment. I have to meet with somebody and brush up on some German and Italian and then anglicize them and do this narration thing for my final kind of piece. I'll be doing that next week, and that'll be the last one that I do. And that's going to be a bittersweet experience, I think. I don't quite yet know how I feel about it. It's kind of like right now, it's like I have this coach, and I feel like I'm flying under his wing, if you will, right? I'm protected by that. This is, I can learn what I need to learn, and if I have questions, I have that person there to ask questions to, and he can answer them, right? And in the course of, we meet all the time, right? Once a month at least, and we talk about things, and specifically audiobooks and how to do them well, professionally. And not that I couldn't ask him a question, right? But it's just, I won't have that lesson there. I don't know, like, how do I fill that void, I guess? But I know the answer to that. I'm taking other classes from other coaches and, doing supplemental things now to fill in where I think I have gaps or things that I need to work on or brush up on. But going into this year, I'm going to be done. I'm going to be done with that. I'll be on my own, as they say, and out there in the wide world of audiobooks and voice acting, which is a whole other side of it that I do want to pursue. I do want to look at commercial works and video games and audio dramas and all that kind of stuff. I want to dip my toes into there as well. I think the primary means of, me as a business with 456 will be audiobooks, but you never know where that'll take you. I don't want to say no to different things and just be as, narrow-minded and focused and close down every other opportunity. I kind of want to seek them out. So I think this year will be a year of learning again, and I think that'll kind of be constant, and then maybe discovery of new things that I want to do and maybe things that I pursue. It'll be a dipping my toe in the different waters kind of year for me, I think. I'll be going to a number of different, conferences, if you will, or get-togethers. There's the audiobook narrators at sea thing that I'll be going on in April, and I'll actually get to meet my audiobook coach face to face the first time. We do video chats, so I've seen him, but I've never met him in person. So that'll be cool. And then I'll get to meet other audiobook coaches that are there and go through this whole kind of blast of different workshops and things that will be attending, more kind of smaller group approach to learning different topics and subjects, which will be fantastic with some other very talented narrators. So I'm excited for that one. There's a meetup in 2026 for the Pacific kind of Northwest, or at least West Coastish. So I want to maybe attend that one too. That's in my home state in Washington. So I might try to attend that as well. So there's that. Lots of things coming up this year. Shannon Parks does, little courses on the weekends and little workshops focusing really on kind of singular topics. And I'll probably dive into a lot of those different sessions to brush up on individual things and just get better and refine my technique of little individual things. So that'll be fantastic. I need to jump back into the Tuesdays where we do the kind of cold reads section with a whole bunch of audiobook narrators. We get together and we're just assigned random parts, and then we go and we narrate. Most of them have been plays so far because it divvies up pretty nicely with different character work that you're working on, and it's fun. I need to jump back into that and do more of those because I've let other things kind of take priority during the holiday season, as it were, right? That's just how it is. That's how it goes. And then I need to redefine my goals for this year. And I have a different kind of method of thinking there too. Before I get into that, Let's talk about what are we drinking tonight on Whiskey Wednesday, because, I mean, that ultimately is the question that you've all been waiting for me to answer, right? Well, let's get into it. What are we drinking? We're drinking, boom, ammunition. A way to bring in the new year. Let me pull back to focus on, and it's like backwards, I think, but that's all right. It says ammunition, just take my word for it. And it is a straight bourbon whiskey, finished in Cabernet Sauvignon barrels. And as you can see, I couldn't wait. I had to dive into it. You know, I had to try it. Is it going to be good? Do I hold back the grimace on stream? No, it's good. So let's pour ourselves a little glass of that. And hopefully you're joining me this evening with whatever beverage you decide to partake in. It doesn't have to be a whiskey for Whiskey Wednesday. We're all inclusive here. It could be hot cocoa. It could be water. It doesn't matter. Grab a drink. Join me as I give myself a nice little pour. Start off with just a little bit tonight. Oh, go crazy. You know, New Year's Eve. It was a thing. So, Harside, how's it going, buddy? Did you get any fresh bottles over the holidays? I did. Ammunition. I don't know if you missed it. A little bit in the chat there about the ammunition. Bringing in the new year. Guns a-blazing, as it were. Ooh, Harside, too. Before I forget, you mentioned you had a person that you recommended to do your editing. Hit me up with that person's name or contact info. I really, really want that. Because I need to find one, because I've decided in the new year, going forward, I am going to focus on narration and let other people do the editing, because that's more kind of an efficient way to use my time. I could do the editing. I proved it to myself. You know, you have to go through it. You have to prove to yourself that you can do it. You have to understand what they go through as editors, and I do. After a 20-hour audiobook, I'm very familiar, and I don't want to do it anymore. I guess maybe that's what it boils down. I don't want to do it anymore. I want somebody else to do this. So, yeah, if you have that info, I need to hook up with you and get the thing. Yes, that would be very cool. And my email is this. In case you need it. Hopefully that came through. It looks like it did. Okay, good. Yes, I would definitely like that, because I need to hit somebody up on that and get that going for this next one. I haven't started. I'll be starting the recording tonight. And I should be finished with it by this weekend, but I can also just send an email of his. Of course, just thought it might be nice for a bit of an introduction. Absolutely, yeah, no, I'll take that for sure. Introductions always nice. Like, hey, I know a person. That it just makes it smoother. So yeah, absolutely. And they'll probably be editing the book that we're going to be reading a little bit of tonight. But first. Oh, that's good. Yep. Oh, yeah. The alcohol, bourbon burn, rocketing through the nostrils. That's what you want. That's what I want. And a nice bourbon. And it's made by Ammunition Distilleries. It was in the little thing there. It's nice and sweet, pleasant up front, and then hit you with the bourbon burn, which is what you want. Yes, very exciting. It's an interesting story already with the, not just the story of the book, but a story of how things came about. It was one where I had just gotten done doing my audiobook demos, and my audiobook coach kind of went through them. We tweaked some stuff, and then it was ready to put up on ACX and put up on my website as, demonstrations of my capabilities. And as soon as I put it up there, I started getting emails from authors going, hey, will you narrate this? Hey, will you narrate this? Hey, will you narrate this? And I had a big self-discovery in that I have a hard time saying no. I did once, though. I did once. Bullet dodged in that case. But I think it did prove, though, that one, your demos do work. and how you structure them is important. And then 2, as soon as you update your demos on ACX, I think it gets pushed out in front of people, because how the heck would all these people find me in front of all of these other fantastic, amazing, talented narrators? It doesn't make sense. So it must be one of those things, as soon as you update your stuff, it briefly puts you up there. So there's that. But so that was cool. So this was one that I got through that, like, hey, I really love your demos. Will you do an audition for me for this book? I kind of read the little synopsis. I'm like, oh yeah, and I want to read this book, so I'm in. I will do an audition for sure. Right up my alley kind of deal. And then doing research about the author and doing research about the series and what I was jumping into, I discovered this was the second book in the series, right? So that leads questions. Well, what about the first book in the series? Is there already an audiobook? Yes, there is. Okay. Why isn't that person doing the second one? And then there was a whole discovery there. So that was interesting, and the first time I've ever experienced that. And I think what's eventually going to happen is the author's going to kind of come back, pay out the first narrator, because it was done royalty share as well, pay them out, and then take it down, put it back up, and then I will do the first one as well and continue with the rest of the 5-book series. So I think that's what's going to happen with this one in particular. So it's been an interesting little, ride to get up to the point of doing this one. So I'm excited, though. The story is really, really good. It's like, it deals with angels and demons, and like, it's right up my alley, right? It's a detective who's actually this ancient being. You might have heard of him if you're familiar with biblical stories. Cain from Cain and Abel. That Cain, yep, he did the thing with his brother. That guy, he's a detective now, because he's not immortal quite, but almost. So it's one of those things where now he's a detective, and he works with the supernatural, and he's brought in on this case, as police departments do sometimes. They'll bring in the psychics and one of those type of deals, right? So he's helping out on this case, and it leads on this adventure that very much leads into the realm of angels and demons, if you will. And it was a really good read. So I was excited to get this one because I just kind of like that thing, like, I don't know. It's just something I enjoy. So it was really fun to read, and it made it less of a chore, if you will, to read it, because it was just fun. It was good. So I'm excited about that one. And then I think I'm going to read this one actually up first. I got a unique opportunity to volunteer for a project, and it's a really cool project. Can't wait to talk about it. Harsa said, I've encountered stuff like that a small handful of times. Yeah, I've heard it happen. Like, I'm a part of a Facebook group where people will talk about books on ACX and get advice and things like that. And I've heard people talking about it, but it's one of those things you're like, oh, and then you experience it and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And now I kind of get it, why they had questions, because now I have the same questions. Refer back to what they were saying on that one. But yeah, not that big of a deal. It was interesting kind of going through that whole, discovery process and doing that thing. But anyways, back to Tumbleweird, which is the newspaper that's out of the Tri-Cities kind of area of Washington State. And it's a community-driven newspaper. And they have articles that not only does the, staff on the paper kind of drive some of the articles, but it's community-driven in that anybody from the community can write an article and submit it to the paper, right? And they can start their own columns in it, and it's a paper for that community. And I think it's pretty cool. The other really cool part of it is a narrator that I met through, networking. She actually heads up the narration part of the project for the community-driven paper for those that are seeing impaired. So most of their articles that are written also have a narrator behind it, or at least that's the goal, is to get a narrator behind it and narrate those for those that can't actually physically read it, which I think is a super cool project. And if I'm going to volunteer my time, I'd rather do something like that, right? Where it's for a purpose and it's to give back a little bit. I like to try to give back a little bit on this stream, in that I read, authors' chapters for free. to help kind of get their stuff out there. It gives me some practice too, so it's kind of a win-win type of deal. But this is really cool. So I'm just going to kind of read through that article and then, hey, answer any questions that I can answer at this point. I'm very new to it, and my meeting to actually be, I think, officially onboarded isn't until next Monday, but I'm excited about it and I want to share, and they said I could. So we're going to share. It's an article written about some movies, and I have seen one of them, and now I want to see the other one, and we'll get into that later. But I think it's a really cool project, and I think that's a super neat idea, and any kind of newspaper that wants to do that for their community, I'm on board with that. So that'll be fun. That'll be a fun one. We'll just start with that one. It's a really quick one. It's just about 2 movies and their short little editorials on that. And then we'll dive into the actual story. So fantastic. We have a great project here just like that. It's called Radio Eye. Oh, that's cool. So is it like local to your specific area or state or guessing community, I'm guessing? Radio Eye. I can't remember where you were out of. I know we've talked about it a whole bunch, but I can't remember what state it was. I feel bad now. It's because we talked about like 10 different places, but it's not like remembering them all. Like, which one? But yeah, so that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Did that? Oh, weird. No, it's back. Okay. I think it's just my computer acting funny. It looked like the YouTube stream went down for just a second, but it didn't. It's back up. Okay. All over Kentucky. Okay. Okay. Not sure how wide the coverage is, though, for sure. Okay. That's cool. I like that name, Radio Eye. That's cool. I like that. Is that what I'm guessing that's just what the project's name, but the paper's name something else. And anyways. Oh, okay. All right. So here's going to be our first test. I think it's going to work. I know it worked at the beginning of the stream, but here in 40 seconds, we're going to have an ad break, and then we're going to jump into the booth and start the whole narration thing. But it should let us know visually on the screen, and we should hear a little jingly jam letting us know that an ad's coming. So if I'm in the middle of narration, we'll know to stop, wait for a second, talk about some stuff, and then come back to the narration so you don't miss anything. Let's see if it works. 15 seconds. Crossing our fingers. Do we think it's going to work? I don't know. All right. 5, 4. It's like the countdown to New Year's. Is it deja vu? Anybody? 2, 1. Did it start? I don't see anything. They read several papers, I think. Okay. They also used to send out devices to seeing impaired folks so they could tune in. Oh, that's really cool. They read the local news aloud from newspapers. Oh, that's cool. I love that kind of stuff. Like, I still want to look into, I always forget the name, but it's the library that contains all the audiobooks for the seeing impaired. It's Project something. It might even be library in the name. I always forget. I look it up and then I forget. You're still here for now. Yeah, okay. It said actually on Twitch that it was going to start. So I don't know. Maybe it just lied to me. Oh, did you hear that? Ad starting in. And then it played twice. That's weird. And now pre-roll ads are disabled for 33 minutes. So I heard the sound effect. I'm seeing the visual thing up there. And now it does say it's on. Okay, that's weird. Okay. You know, streamer woes, right? I think I have this figured out now. And I should probably never waste more time talking on the stream about it. But it says it's going to go to ad break like almost a minute early is what it looks like. And then it actually goes. But my stream activation things worked, and then you heard the Old Spice theme. And there it is. I'm in an ad. There we go. Okay. And then looks like there's 3 ads, and it's giving me a countdown for each one. So that looks like that's working. Because it says 40 seconds overall, and this says 2 of 3. Okay, yeah, that looks like it's working. Beautiful. Beautiful. If you're on YouTube, you're like, what are you talking about? Because you guys don't see the ads. Because YouTube is set up differently. They do it kind of throughout, I think. Actually, I don't know how that works on live stream. I think it's only for like the video after the fact. You're back already? Okay. This says it's still going. Maybe that's off a little bit. I'll have to look at that maybe. I don't even know how you're supposed to test that, because you can't test unless you're live. That's a conundrum, right? Break ended. Your community is back. Oh, and then it disappeared. Okay. I don't know. Whatever. Welcome back. Oh. And before we jump into it, I wanted to share something real quick. And this is kind of like almost like a PSA, if you will. There's something to look out for. Because I find it annoying and kind of amusing at the same time. But annoying, but amusing. What am I talking about? Let's pull this up. I want to talk about this. So, if you're seeing my screen, here's a picture. And you're like, what is this, right? Well, why are you sharing a picture of these two individuals? And it looks like one of them may be in the military. But look close. Look close. My vets out there might notice something. That gentleman is wearing a uniform that does not exist in the United States military. It's a combination of a flight suit and a top of a flight suit maternity style thing. I don't know what the heck that is. These people don't exist. This is not a real image. This is AI generated. And why would I be showing you an AI generated image, you might be asking? If you see up at the top, the title of this image is Scammer. Because I encountered a scammer on the interwebs, specifically on Instagram. So I've been posting a lot of social media updates on Instagram, and I get a lot of different people that follow, and I'm a friendly guy, right? If you say hi, I'm going to say hi back. Problem is, some of those people that say hi are scammers, and usually most of the time I ignore them. I used to mess with them a lot on the telephone. I don't anymore, and we'll get into that in just a second. But I decided to have a conversation with this person because I was like, well, I'll bite, right? I could tell by the vibe of this conversation it was a scammer, but they said that I was in the military. They were like, oh, well, my dad was in the military. Oh, what did he serve in? Oh, the Navy. Oh, really cool. What did he do? Because, I was in the Air Force and I flew on planes. I wasn't a pilot, but I flew on them. And they're like, oh, he was a pilot. And here's a picture of my sister with him. Okay. It immediately breaks down. I mean, the rest of the story broke down too. Like, they didn't really understand anything about it. And the information that they were giving me was wrong. But look how good this image is, though. Like, it breaks down if you know what you're looking at, right? Like, I know this isn't an actual military uniform. It's not real. This doesn't exist. It's taken from pieces of different uniforms and mashed together into whatever the heck this is. But this is not an actual uniform, right? It's pretty scary in that the patch placement is almost spot on. This is kind of how it works, right? But there's some other things too, like visually. But it's, to the layperson just looking at this is a really good image, right? It's really good. You could fool a lot of people with this image. And the crazy part is they were able to graft this particular character into a couple of different settings. This one was the best by far, which is why I'm kind of highlighting it. But in other images, like the hands weren't quite right. And like there was other visual artifacts that just kind of made the whole thing fall apart. But this image in particular was really good. All of this to say, be careful out there. Be very wary. And if somebody, big red flag, if somebody wants to jump from one social media platform to another, be leery. Why wouldn't they want to continue the conversation with you on this particular platform? Why do we have to jump to another platform that is encrypted, that is notorious for not being able to be trackable? There's a reason, right? Guys out there, I will let you know a very popular scam these days is for them to send you not so safe for work pictures and then blackmail you. That's a scam that's going on. Do not trust anyone online, especially if they want to hop different social media platforms to continue their conversation with you. This one was interesting because I thought it was just somebody that was like into audiobooks or something, and that was not the case. It was definitely a scam trying to go on. Now, about the messing with scammers online, or on the telephone, rather. I don't do that anymore, and here's why, and you shouldn't either. I used to just mess with them because I'm like, well, the more that I'm talking to them, the less that they can talk to somebody else, right? And that was my thought process. I work in cybersecurity in my day job, so I just, I found it fun to mess with the scammers. I don't do that anymore. The first contact was on Instagram. That was where they hit me up at. And then they wanted me to jump to other platforms. But yeah, so this is out on Instagram everywhere. It's on other platforms too. It's not just exclusive to Instagram. I notice a lot of them too on TikTok because I just created an account on TikTok a little bit ago, and I put up videos every now and then. I should probably do more on that actually, but they're really heavy on TikTok. But anyways, when they call you on the phone and you get the scammers on the phone and you figure out it's a scammer, I try not to really talk to anybody that I don't have their name in my phone anyways, right? Because here's what they can do. This is the thing that they're running right now, is they're capturing your voice and they're using that recording of your voice and they're inserting it into algorithms that can regenerate you saying things that you never said. And they don't really need a lot of your voice to be able to do that with nowadays. It's the algorithms to be able to create these things are getting really, really, really good. Here's a scam that they're running. Your voice calls one of your relatives, let's say it's grandma, and the AI generated voice tells them, you're in trouble, I need you to send money, or I've been in a terrible accident and I need you to do blah. It all boils down to sending money because you're in trouble, and they're using your voice to do this with. That's why I do not talk to anyone that I really don't know, right? I don't even like, if I pick up the phone and there's that odd pause and then you can hear the line connect, I just hang up. Because they like recording voices and using that to run scams. So let your family know, if you have older generations of people that these scammers like to prey upon, let them know, hey, if you think, if I ever call you and there's a situation, hang up, call me back on my number so that you know it's me you're talking to, right? Always double check, right? I'm in trouble? Really? Click, call back. Sounds weird, but do it, because this is the type of thing that goes on. And I bring this up too because a few months ago, my mother-in-law was called by a scammer, and they said that they were the FBI and they were sending police officers to our door to arrest them, and they needed all this information, and obviously scamming phone call, and she was falling for it. Thankfully, she lives in my house, and me and my wife are caregivers for her and their mom, she's 96 now. But anyways, I heard this conversation going on. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And then I went in there and intercepted the phone call. I was like, whoa, okay, click. And we ended that. Just putting this out there because this has happened a lot, and it's happened personally to me, and it can happen kind of personally to you and your family. So just putting it out there, be aware of it. Don't even talk to people on the phone anymore unless you know who they are, is kind of the point of it. So it's out there, it's scary, and it's terrible. So anyways, PSA over. Right? I've heard of this elsewhere as well. Yep. I've actually gotten that one, or a variation. Dude, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, the creative ways that they've come up with to scam people. I have some choice words for those individuals that will get myself banned from this platform. I'm not a fan of them or their tactics, or dirty tactics. But anyways, just something to be aware of, because I've seen, and kind of personally, I've seen an uptick of this too, and you hear about it in the news a lot too. If you pay attention to those type of things, like I do, and being around the cybersecurity world, I hear a lot of it going on. the different things that different entities are trying. So I wonder how many people in the States have been contacted by scammers, like what percent? I bet you it's a super high percent. I bet you it's a super high percent, because there's this, when your information goes out on, different things, either online that you fill out or you're filling out applications, companies have this incentive to sell your information unless they explicitly tell you otherwise. And I think that's eventually how all of this information gets in the hand of those that are nefarious, right? Either they buy it legitimately, or, different things that are hacked into are sold, and they buy those databases of information, which is why you should always be updating your passwords every now and then, and never use the same one for multiple sites. Type it in, get a password manager is probably the easiest way to handle that. But I think that's how it happens. And I bet you there's just an incredibly high percentage, because they run things like the, back in the day, we had just the what do you call them? The telemarketers, right? That they would have databases and automatic dialers that would just dial the next number. They're doing the same thing, same technology, right? They're just intercepting this information from whatever means they can get it from, either, from the black market or legitimately sometimes. And they're just entering these databases of numbers and contact information and stuff like that, even social media accounts, into these things that just basically auto dial, if you will. So I think it's probably a pretty high percentage, probably a astronomically high percentage, unfortunately. So I got a password manager last year, not that long ago. Good. Use it. And the cool thing about most password managers these days too is they tell you when sites get compromised, like whatever website was compromised, go in there and change your information, right? I use other things too, like privacy.com, which allows me to hook my bank account up to the site, and then it generates credit cards or debit cards for me, and I use those to make purchases online. And I can tailor those debit cards or credit cards down to, hey, this will only work for this singular transaction, or this can only be charged $10 a month for my Netflix, or this only has, $300 on it total, and when it reaches there, it closes. You can set whatever stipulation and get as granular as you want with it. And then when it comes time for that card to expire, I just generate a new one and go to that website that I'm using it for, if it's one of those that I use for subscription or whatever, and do that. Added benefit is, if that website gets compromised, I shut that one card down and I don't have to cancel my debit card and go get another one. Highly recommend it. It's, I think, free unless you start getting, like, if you're a business or something, obviously you'd have to pay. But for personal accounts, it's free up into like a pretty high dollar amount every month that you would have to send through it. So anyways, I would highly recommend privacy.com if you don't already use it. Super cool site. Keep yourself a little safer online. Anyways, enough about cybersecurity. Let's get into audiobooks, shall we? we're talking about it was just fresh on my mind. I'm sorry. Let's you're probably asking the question.
My God, are you still talking?
I am. Let's get to reading, shall we? Let's go to the booth. Oh, it's changed. It's changed a little bit. More so for me than for you guys. But let's get into some reading tonight, because it sounds good, like. All right. In the booth. Fire this bad boy up. There we go. Perfect. All right. Hopefully you guys are hearing me coming through all right into here. I did not check that. Hey, who's you gave me a flub right off the bat. Come on, man. You're not going to give me credit? I could probably... Okay. You're right. It's going to happen anyways. You're just getting ahead of you're giving me a free one, so I don't have to worry about the free one. What you're telling me is the first one's on the house. How's it going, buddy? Who's is here to keep me in line, make sure my head doesn't get too big, and make sure that I'm held accountable for all of my mistakes. Getting it out of the way now. Thank you. Appreciate it, buddy. All right. Well, a holiday dish. All right. Mental note. I forgot to change the question that it gets asked to all the newbies that come into the stream, or anybody that wants to participate, what your holiday dish is. I guess it's still kind of holiday. It's the new year. So there's a little, I'm going to change that question though. So if you have a favorite holiday dish, get it in now because, won't be there for very long. Let's get into what we're reading. So I'm going to be reading an article from we were talking about it a little bit, from not a magazine. I keep wanting to say magazine. It's a newspaper called Tumbleweird in the Washington State, specifically Tri-Cities area. And it's a community-driven paper. And this specific project is for the seeing impaired to be able to listen to all of the articles that are generated for this newspaper. And I was selected as one of those people to narrate some of those articles. So it's a kind of a different style of narration. Really fun, too. And I got to pick which one I wanted to try out for, and I picked the movie one because movies are great, and who doesn't like watching movies? This particular article is for the January issue coming out this month by an author or a columnist, I guess is what you would call him, by the name of Damien Began, and it's about the movies Gladiator 2 and Sunset Road. Gladiator 2, obviously you probably know what that one is, and then Sunset Road is a kind of a local film to the Prosser area, which is an area it's like a small little area inside of the Tri-Cities area in Washington. Anyways, it's a kind of a take on Romeo and Juliet, if you will, but it's done instead of the Montagues and Capulets, it's their winemaker families, I guess. But it's the story of kind of Romeo and Juliet. The author gets into it. We'll go through it, but I kind of want to watch it now because it sounds interesting. We'll get into it, but it's a good little article. Let's see if you agree with their point of view. Here we go. Okay. And I'm not going to use that. Use this to scroll. Okay. You're listening to Tumbleweird, narrated by Justin Fife. In the January 2025 issue, Damien Began writes, Movie Reviews for January, Gladiator 2 and Sunset Road. Gladiator 2. It's been almost a quarter of a century since moviegoers saw Russell Crowe in his career-defining role as a Roman general turned gladiator Maximus Decimus Meridius, standing bloodied and defiant in the great Colosseum of Rome, bellowing, "Are you not entertained?" Ridley Scott's millennial revival of the sword and sandal epic was a resounding hit, becoming the second highest-grossing film of 2000, plus scooping up a clutch of Academy Awards. It's safe to say that a potential sequel did not seem likely, with Maximus being incontrovertibly dead as the end credits rolled. Still, pesky little details like mortality seldom get in the way of the Hollywood juggernaut. An assortment of early scripts did the rounds over the next decade, notably one gleefully bonkers effort by Australian rock star Nick Cave, which would have seen Maximus resurrected as an immortal warrior by the Roman gods and sent on a mission to end Christianity by murdering Jesus and his disciples, accidentally killing his own son in the process, and being cursed to live forever as the eternal soldier in a sort of Highlander meets Spartacus mashup. Perhaps, fortunately, the film sank instead into development hell. It's only now, a generation after the original, that Scott has finally settled on a credible script and delivered Gladiator 2. Set some 16 years after the events of the original, the Roman Empire is even closer to its decline and fall under the rule of corrupt and degenerate twin emperors. Oh man, I'm going to mess this one up. When I did this one, hold me accountable. I actually spelled it out in the script, but I forgot to grab that copy of it. Caracalla, I think is actually what it is, and Geta. The grandson of the late Emperor Marcus Aurelius and the true heir to Rome, Lucius Verus, Paul Mescal, is living in hiding with his warrior wife in the kingdom of Numidia, which is, as the film opens, invaded and conquered by Roman general Accius. Pedro Pascal. Lucius's wife is killed in battle, while Lucius is captured and enslaved. Arriving at the Roman port of Ostia, he is marked as a potential gladiator, and after surviving a pit fight with a troop of wild baboons, soon comes to the attention of ambitious, scheming master of gladiators, Macrinus, Denzel Washington, who sets him on the same road taken by Maximus before him to the Colosseum. It's interesting that he doesn't list out like his Macrinus, blah, 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 or whatever, like his both names. That's what I was expecting coming into that. Interesting. Anyways, this brings us to the elephant in the room, or rhino in the Colosseum in this case. Did the world really need a Gladiator sequel? And does this movie serve any purpose other than to tarnish the luster on the original? Well, sort of. It has to be said that the wildly uneven script is laden with a multitude of plot inconsistencies and lumpen, ponderous dialogue, which seems at times to be chaining the starry cast by their ankles. Lucius's character arc is utterly ludicrous, and while deporting himself well in the film's action sequences, Paul Mescal lacks the brooding, animalistic gravitas that made Russell Crowe's Maximus a compelling hero. Ultimately, the story lacks the originality to feel anything more than a retread of the first movie. That said, this is a Ridley Scott film, which is absolutely beautifully crafted. Directed with all of his trademark visual bells and whistles as evidence, the film lacks substance, which it makes up for in style. In conjuring up the image of a decadent empire in decline, Scott makes visual nods to Fellini's Satyricon and Tinto Brass's Caligula, while Denzel Washington, in a gloriously overblown performance, has endless fun chewing the scenery to pieces whenever the camera lands on him. Are we not entertained? Perhaps we are, but not as much as we were the first time round. So what do you think? Do you agree with his take on Gladiator 2 if you have seen it? I saw it, and I liked it. I think beautiful film, by the way, so he's not wrong there. The first film is so nostalgic, though, from not only Russell Crowe's performance, like he was saying, but like the soundtrack, the music, such a good movie. 24 years later to get another, I don't know, a host of really good actors too, so it didn't lack there. But it was a little on the nose. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think the film would have stood out more if I had never seen the first one. I think if there never was a first one and you went into this one, you would still be blown away and you'd be like, oh, that was a fantastic movie. And there wouldn't even be a question in your mind, was this as good as the first? And I don't think it does it any favors comparing the two, but that's my 2 cents. What do you guys think? You killed Maximus to blah blah, though. You are forgiven for the flips. I'm going to buy it, I think. It's a movie I can watch over and over. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. I think going into a Gladiator movie, what do you want? Does the story have to be absolutely immaculate? No. Does there have to be gladiators fighting in the Colosseum? Yes. Do those battles have to be epic and visually stunning? And yes, that's what you want. And that's what we got. And I'm okay with that. Like the rest of it around it can be a little not as good plot-wise, and that's okay, right? It's like going to a Jurassic Park film. What do you want to see? What are your expectations? What should they be going into a Jurassic Park film? It should be you want to see T-Rex fight some dinosaurs, and he better win, or he better be in it, right? And then you want to see some other dinosaurs too, right? I mean, come on, it's dinosaurs. That's why we watch the movie. The plot doesn't have to be good. The plots, arguably, in all the Jurassic Park films, maybe outside of the first and second one, are crap, right? But as long as they got T-Rex in there messing some stuff up, it's a good film. So you go into a Gladiator film, or a film like that, with the expectation that there better be some gladiator fighting in this Colosseum. And there was, and they delivered, and I think, there you go. It's good. I think it was a good film. Beckoning you for Fortnite. All right, well, see you later. Take care, Who's. Thanks for keeping me accountable for a little while. All right, let's break into Sunset Road. It is a local film to the area of the kind of the Tri-Cities area by a new director. So let's break into that one. Sunset Road. When William Shakespeare penned his tragic tale of two doomed teenage lovers, Romeo and Juliet. Let's start that again. Let's you're not here who's, but I will flub myself. There we go. When William Shakespeare penned his tragic tale of two doomed teenage lovers, Romeo and Juliet, he could scarcely have imagined that it would still influence new generations of actors and filmmakers almost 450 years after its premiere. With a strong claim to be the most filmed play ever written, a bewildering plethora of screen plethora. Why did I say plethora? A bewildering plethora of screen adaptations stretches back over 100 years, featuring leading men from Leslie Howard to Leonardo DiCaprio, with the action transposed from Verona to New York to Gujarat, and just about everywhere else in between. However, there is at least one place that has never played host to the legendary star-crossed lovers, Eastern Washington's wine country. Until now. Broadway star, Edinburgh Fringe veteran, recording artist, and Kennewick native Janet Cruppen brings the bard home with Sunset Road. I'm going to just add like 14 flubs. It wasn't this hard the first time around. Let's try this again. All right. Kennewick native Janet Cruppen brings the bard home with Sunset Road, her debut film as writer, director, and star. A whimsical riff on the themes of Romeo and Juliet, Sunset Road sees the warring Capulets and Montagues replaced by the Cabernet-producing Campbells and Merlot-making Montgomerys, two neighboring wine families who bicker endlessly over which one of them produces a superior bottle of vino. The film opens with the prodigal daughter Etta Campbell visiting home from Seattle. By a quirk of fate, the rival families have both booked tables at a local high-end restaurant at the same time. During this Michelin-starred Cold War, seasoned liberally with Olympic-level passive aggression, Etta's eyes meet those of Montgomery's daughter, Orrin, who's a little bit goth and a lot bored with winemaking. Next thing Etta knows, she's on a balcony. Well, okay, it's the decking on her uncle's patio, engaging in some weapons-grade flirting with Orrin, replete with enough suggestive wine-related double entendres to make even the most broad-minded vintner blush. At this point, the tale deviates somewhat from Shakespeare's text in that neither family seems particularly bothered by the prospect of Orrin and Etta doing the horizontal tango amidst the vines, sticking assiduously to their preferred gripes about Canadians buying wine-growing land, unpredictable yeast, and how awful the Campbells or Montgomerys are. That said, this is a light romantic comedy, so high drama culminating in a mass suicide was never in the cards. It's less Titus Andronicus and more Much Ado About Prosser. Cruppen's script is effervescent and fruity on the palate and littered with more winemaking in-jokes than one can reasonably count. The set-piece scenes featuring the families sniping at each other are waspishly hilarious, but the love story between the two leads is paper-thin and unconvincing. There's no real chemistry there. Hey, an ad is about to start. We just got our audio reminder. So, the ad break has started, and we'll be back in about a minute and 23 seconds to finish our script here about the newspaper article about Sunset Road. I do want to see this one after kind of reading through this article here. And I will say, since everybody's in the ad break right now, unless you're on the YouTubes. Hello. The phrase, I glossed over it, and I didn't say it super well, but I took like 30 takes of this stupid line. Because I have found a word I hate. Waspishly. I can't even say it. Waspishly hilarious. Waspishly hilarious. I hate that line. It took me like 30 takes to get that thing down. I had to say it over and over and over and over again. And then I messed up like 3 words right after I said it, so I had to do the whole thing. I wasn't even drinking, so I have no excuse. It's just one of those things. That's one of the... I immediately after finishing this one went to Facebook and went, because that's what you do, right? You take your frustrations out and you turn it into content. At least that's what I do. I don't know, whatever. Gets me through it. Okay? We listen and we don't judge, right? That's a thing? Okay. Oh, man. The only bad thing is, I'm not going to be able to tell when that ends. I think it's over. I think the ad break's over, so we're going to continue. We're just going to start at the top here. No, we're going to start here. That's where we're going to start. Waspishly. Oh, dude, it's one of those things. I can't say it. Waspishly, and then the following word starts with an H. Hilarious. Waspishly hilarious. I don't know why it's so hard. Anyways, I'll stop bitching and get on with it. So we'll just continue from here. Kruppen's script is effervescent and fruity on the palate, and littered with more wine-making in-jokes than one can reasonably count. The set-piece scenes featuring the family sniping at each other are waspishly hilarious, but the love story between the two leads is paper-thin and unconvincing. There's no real chemistry there, and what little there is feels awkward, to the extent that a montage scene intended to convey unbridled lust comes across as comedic rather than erotic. That said, it's only fair to remember that this is a movie shot on a shoestring budget with a largely amateur cast, who deport themselves with a gleeful, let's do the show right here charm that carries the movie through its relatively short runtime. While it's never going to make the short list for the next Academy Awards, that doesn't stop Sunset Road from being a spirited, witty debut from Janet Kruppen, and local Tri-Cities viewers, particularly regulars at the Emerald of Siam in Richland, will have endless fun spotting well-known local places and faces. In fact, I can feel a drinking game coming on. Merlot or Cabernet, anyone? Recently arrived in the Tri-Cities, Damien is a former freelancer who previously wrote movie and music reviews for a variety of UK websites. You are listening to Movie Reviews for January, from the January 2025 publication of Tumbleweird, written by Damien Began. This article was narrated by Justin Fife. Tumbleweird, positively weird, never timid. Serving the Tri-Cities, Washington, and surrounding area. Available at tumbleweird.org and in print at your favorite local coffee shops and restaurants. Thank you for listening. There you go. So a little different feel from our normal narration, and I'll be doing probably quite a few of these. Can't wait. I think the only thing that's going to be kind of, okay, it's not going to be that hard, is I'm going to have to see all these movies before I do a review about it, because I don't want spoilers. So that just means I'm going to have to go watch more movies. You know what? Tax write-off, though, because this is research. If I go see a movie, it's research for the thing I have to narrate, right? Right? We'll see what my accountant says. I don't know. I can see it as I'm a voice actor. I'm just saying, I'm just going to see if it flies. That's what I'm going to do. I think it could. Anyway, next one up, we're going to break into The Second Bride here in just a second as I sip on more of this. Seems justifiable. It does, doesn't it? Right? It's research. I happen to enjoy the research, but that doesn't make it more or less tax write-offable. Right? It's my story and I'm sticking to it. All right. Okay, let's see here. The Second Bride. A completely different narration style. Less casual. All right. So this is The Second Bride, written by Kurt Dyer, and it is the second book in a series called the Wanderer series. Actually, do I have the... I do. Let me put that in chat there for you. There's a little bit about the author and a little bit about the book, too.
Really, really interesting series. The first audiobook version of it will probably be taken down here soon. And I'll be redoing that first one so that it's kind of consistent throughout the series. But the first narrator was interesting. They kind of looked at this as, they took the detective thing and went New Yorker with it. But the author kind of wanted to change that up a little bit and go more Middle Eastern meets Pennsylvania, middle of the state, Missouri, kind of generalized Midwestern accent, which at first was very hard to wrap my brain around, like Middle Eastern meets Midwestern American. Where do I begin? So with the accent piece, if you're interested, kind of researching the accent of Arabic and Egyptian and kind of going through all those. Basically what I decided to do is take that kind of approach, but lessen it, like pull back a lot on it. Something just happened because I heard a sound. I got a new follower. Who was it this time? Neth. Hey, rating. How's it going, Neth? Are you streaming earlier? Is that what it is? How was your stream today? I keep like tuning in at odd times at the times that I think you're streaming, and I'm missing the Neff. I need to watch more Neff. When are you streaming, buddy? Several things happened. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Hey, a tall girl. Thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. It was fine. I'm just a little low energy tonight, so we ended early. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's okay. If you have to go take care of the after streamer stuff, go for it. Obviously, don't feel obligated to stay. I get it. I get it. You have to take care of the stuff, but I'm missing me some Neff, so I have to tune in. You almost missed the raid. Oh, no. I almost did too, but it gave me a little thing. That's why those sound effects are important, I'm learning, right? But yeah, thank you so much, Neff, for the raid. I really appreciate it. And Neff, if you don't know, is also a very, very talented narrator himself. And I'm trying to convince them to step in and do the audiobook narration thing too. I understand the reasons why you can't right now. I'm just saying you're talented, buddy. And you should jump into it because I really enjoy listening to your streams as well. Very talented. For the record, my schedule is, okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. to midnight-ish EST. Okay, got it. Okay, I will tune in next time to there because I miss your streams. I've been missing them. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of work with editing an audiobook that I just finished, so I've been under a rock anyways. Kind of trying to push that out to get to this book that we're about to read a couple chapters of, which is my next project. But I miss you, buddy. I need to jump back in. Anyways, so a little bit about this book. Thank you all for joining. I'm just going to post here kind of in chat a little bit about the author and a little bit about this book. This is the second book in the series. The first book was done by a different narrator, and we're going to go back and replace that one, and I'm going to do the entire series. Long story behind that, but basically I'm going to be doing them all from the beginning. So I was just kind of talking about is generating the voice for the main character, and this will be interesting in that it's first-person perspective, but I'm not going to use the first person's voice to narrate, just for their dialogue lines, which was a very specific choice kind of between myself and the author. But the accent that he wanted me to use was a kind of an Arabic meets Midwestern, right? Which is, as I was kind of saying, really hard to kind of wrap your brain around. How do you do that? So in researching kind of Egyptian and Arabic accents and dialects and how they speak and going through that whole thing, I basically decided to do that and then pull really far back on it. The main character happens to be KANE from the biblical stories of Cain and Abel, that KANE that has basically, he got this mark that allows him to be more or less immortal. He's not immortal, but he lives forever unless somebody does him in, but the mark also protects him. So anybody that tries to do him harm, the mark will harm them back, like tenfold. So he's kind of protected in that way. But he can be killed. So there is an element of he's not invincible. He's not immortal. He's a human more or less. He just lives forever. However, he's decided to use his unique ability to live forever and an understanding of angels and demons and the hierarchy and the whole thing to become a detective. And he's been pulled in by the Richmond Heights Police Department as kind of a special advisor or investigator in this case to help out with some strange going-ons. And that's kind of where we pick up in book 2 of the Wanderer series, which is what we're going to be reading tonight. So thank you for joining me. If that sounds interesting, hey, we're going to be reading a couple chapters. And if you want to pick up the book is already available. You can pick that up, and there's a link down there in the Amazon stuffs if you want to pick that up. But let me catch back up with chat after explaining that. You'll be lurking. Okay, thank you for the lurk, Nev. Take care of your stuff. Sit the dark quiet for a while. Okay, all right. See if we can fill up the old E-tanks. As you do. Oh, and another raid. I didn't even hear the other raid coming in. So, and now Nev's in here twice. Micah Psycho, thank you very much for the raid as well. And thank you everybody that joined in from that raid. How was your stream tonight? As I was blabbing and missed the sound thing that let me know you were coming in. My apologies. That maybe you're doing that. Fuck. Okay. All right. Owned up to it. How was your stream tonight? What'd you get up to? What were you doing? You missed that one too? Okay, it wasn't just me. All right. I was blabbing. It was my fault. So much fun. Great to start to the new year. Yeah, it is the new year. And exciting things happening. I was talking kind of at the beginning of the stream tonight about changing my perspective on goals. Because, everybody's setting new goals for the new year. And I'm kind of setting up goals for myself and going through last year's goals and kind of seeing where I came up short or succeeded on. But I think I'm going to change my mindset around those goals. And it's kind of, I guess, maybe a common philosophy, but I'm coming to it just now where I try to make goals, or I'm going to be making goals for this new year in a way that I can affect the outcome of that goal directly, right? So instead of having a goal, let's say, for I want to get signed on by 2 major platforms this year. I don't really have direct control over that. I can't sign myself on to those major publishing platforms, right? But what I can control is submitting to those major publishing platforms, right? So my goal instead will be I'm going to submit to 10 of the different major publishing platforms, or 5 of them, whatever the goal may be, because that's something I can control, right? And changing my mindset around that, I think, is maybe will lead to a better mental state and healthier outcome for me come the end of the year when I go, oh no, I didn't make any of those goals. I had such high ambitions. So I think just changing my mindset around it that way, I think will help kind of going into this new year and changing basically the goals that I set in other places to fit more closely with that mindset, I think might help. There was a couple of different like author workshops or conferences or audiobook narrator conferences that I went to that people were talking about goal planning, and I like that idea. So I think I'm going to adopt it and see how that goes for this year. So that's kind of my new way of thinking going into the new year. So played Myst 4 after reading for a bit. Ooh, what'd you read? Good idea for your sanity. Yeah, absolutely. Can't control what you can't control. Exactly. That's kind of, I think it's a good way to think about it. So we will see, though, going into the new year, how well that works. So Myst. Oh, is Myst like Myst, Riven, like all of those, like the puzzle games type stuff? Is that what you're talking about? I remember playing Myst when it first came out, if that's the one. I have all the remastered ones because they had like a Humble Bundle on it. It came with Riven and the whatever was the addition to that one. I can't remember. There's like some kind of expansion to it, but I haven't dove into them yet. But a New Year's resolution to win the lottery will likely end up upsetting. So yeah, stick to what's in your power. Absolutely. Yeah. God, what are your chances to win the big lottery? What are like the Powerball? Wouldn't that be nice though? I would still do audiobooks. I'm not gonna lie. I would just do a lot more of them because then I wouldn't have a day job. I'd have that job. What would you do? That's a good question. If you had unlimited money was no what would you do? Like to keep yourself busy? There's tons of things you could do, but what would you do? What would be fun? I don't know. I used to think like just going to like a university and taking every single course that I could take and see how much I could learn would be really, really like fun and fascinating. Like how far would I get in astrophysics? How much could I expand my brain? But as I've gotten older, nah, I don't like schoolwork that much. Like I'm good. I'm good. Goals change. Let's see here. Yes, sir. Playing Myst for Blind. Oh, okay. I played the others long ago as a kid. Yeah. I remember playing them way back in the day. I never got very far because I get like super frustrated and then quit. Like, I think the one I got the farthest in was Myst though. Like when Riven came out, I remember that because it wasn't like they were saying something like 9 years in the making, or like that was like the big thing. Like it took them so long to create it because the puzzles were so, I don't know, whatever the marketing was around it. I think I remember something about that. There was all these offshoots too. If you remember that, there was one about like Egypt. I can't remember the name of, but it was like you went into the pyramids and I don't know. There was tons of them. Probably just screw around and make stuff stream. So functionally, already rich. Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. It's also, I guess that's too is like you can be rich in a whole bunch of different ways, right? So it's not always monetary, but that would ease up financial commitments, right? Like paying your mortgage or your rent, right? I don't know. Something I think about. What would I do? I don't ever think I'll have to worry about that, but especially if I don't get to reading what I meant to read. So let's get into the reading, shall we?
My God, are you still talking?
I am. I'll get to the reading. I'm sorry. Let's get to it. That's what you came here for. Let's read some stuff about KANE and his detective prowess. As we finish off our drink. All right, let's go. The Second Bride, Book 2, Chapter 1. 3 months was definitely not the amount of time I expected to pass before I found myself back inside the office of Detective Michael Tarver of the Richmond Heights Police Department. But here I was, tucked away just under half an hour southwest of St. Louis, Missouri. Richmond Heights was mostly a quiet small town of just over 8,000 people. Quiet, except that it had recently become a hotspot for demon activity. That's right, you heard me correctly. Demons are real. In fact, just about everything in the supernatural world is real and living among us, hiding in plain sight. I should probably explain who I am. My name is Jerusalem KANE, Salem for short. I'm a private detective who looks into incidents that normal investigators don't have a clue about, incidents such as supernatural phenomenon. You might be asking yourself, what makes me an expert in such things? How is it that I know that supernatural creatures truly exist? Both are excellent questions. The simplest answer I can give you is because I am one. My true name is KANE. I was never given a surname because when I was born, my parents didn't have surnames. They were, after all, the first humans of creation. Their names were Adam and Eve. I was the oldest of twins born to my parents, though the scriptures today don't tell of us being twins. I grew up to two very different people. I worked the land, and he took care of the animals. In a fit of rage, I slew my brother when we were but in our mid to late 20s. I know, it sounds fantastic, but it's all true. You might have 1,000 questions right now, because the Bible that was supposed to tell the story of creation, upon its many translations, left a lot of things out. But let me summarize it the best I can, because there's another story that needs to be told here. Upon the death of my brother Abel, I was cast out of the land and grew up and forced to wander the earth. I was marked with a supernatural symbol that for years I believed was a curse. It gave me immortality of a sense, stopping my aging process immediately. The mark also served as a guardian of sorts from any that would wish to cause me harm by causing harm sevenfold back to the intended perpetrator. For nearly a century following the mark's application, it was visible to all that I came across, and I was shunned by many who could read the mark and understood what it meant. I settled down, to an extent, many times, and in many different locations, but the mark would not allow me to live a normal life. I had wives and children, and they grew up to lead their own lives and die as they followed their natural life cycle. Around the time of the Great Flood, the mark became invisible to all but the supernatural and gifted. It served as a warning not to harm me or attempt to harm me. For a number of years, I've been told that the mark actually exuded a kind of harmonic sound and feeling that would tell supernatural beings to go the opposite direction when approaching me. By virtually disappearing from visible sight of normal human beings, I was allowed to take on a new identity, and attempt to lead a more normal life than I had heretofore been able to. With each identity that I've chosen, I've attempted to either choose a name that described me or my origins, or keep my true name, though in different spellings, as part of whatever identity I chose to become, much like I do now with the name Jerusalem KANE. "Have a seat, Salem," Detective Tarver said as I entered his office after greeting me with a handshake. Not more than 3 months ago, I had come to Richmond Heights and not only helped save a kidnapped little girl, but also thwarted 2 nasty princes of hell, killing one and sending the other back to his own plane. In the process, I'd befriended the local detective and shared my secret with him. "Thanks for the call," I said, taking a seat. He closed the door behind me and then returned to his seat behind the desk. He handed me a blue folder that had been sitting on his desk and immediately went into his report verbally with me even as I read through the file. "About 6 months ago, we started to get reports of missing people, men specifically. At first, we didn't think anything of it. The reports spread out over a period of 2 or 3 weeks between disappearances. The men reported missing were all young, in their early to mid-20s, unmarried, and in good physical shape. The thought was they decided to move on, and maybe hadn't settled anywhere yet. Happens all the time, right?" "Right," I confirmed, more to keep him on track than actually agreeing with him. Truthfully, until Marlene had come into my life, I was one of those men. I hadn't settled in any one place for a very long time. Let me back up a bit and explain who Marlene is. Marlene Mallory is my goddaughter. I took her in when she was 6, and her parents were killed in a car accident. She had no next of kin. Her parents and I had become fast friends years before her birth. Today, Marlene works with me, not for me, in the private investigation business. She's my manager of sorts. She fields all the calls, does the research I need, and manages my finances and those of the business. Not that I couldn't manage that. She's just better at it. To her, I'm Uncle Salem, though not her biological uncle, obviously. To me, Marlene became my entire world. Well, What happened here? That's weird. The text got weird, sorry. Anyways, I need to catch up on a couple of flubs. Here we go. Well, I didn't mention anything to you when you were down here a few months ago, because the case was actually someone else's, and we were kind of involved with other things. It came across my desk only when some of these missing men finally turned up. "Dead by the looks of the photos you sent," I said. "Right," he said. "Dead as a doornail." "Did the disappearances escalate any or stay right around 1 or 2 or 3 weeks?" "They started to escalate 1 a week. Then they went from single, unmarried men to married men." "Any common grounds, any common locations or establishments these men shared?" I asked. "Some," he said, "but not all. When the disappearances first started happening, the detectives that were investigating found that a local bar was a common denominator in their disappearances. After they staked out the bar a couple of nights, everything stopped. The next couple of disappearances that happened, neither of them were drinkers nor frequented any bars for any reason. After the third missing persons report was filed, not linking to the bar, the detectives gave up that lead and started looking for new ones, but none were found. How many disappearances in total? 14 so far. And some of the missing men were found? All but 2, he said. The last 2 victims have still not been recovered. I see, I said. And you believe it's possible these last 2 men are still alive somewhere? I do, but there's something strange that caused me to call you back here. What do you mean? The victims were all gray, as would be the case of a dead body, but they were completely drained of, well, everything. Their bodies seemed to not only be drained of all bodily fluid, but they also appear to have aged. The ME confirmed their identities as being missing men, but he still hasn't been able to give me a time or cause of death. She reports that it's because all the traits that would normally exist to help determine that are not there. What the hell could have done that? Are you sure you want to know? No. But tell me anyway, he said. A succubus. Bum, bum, bum. A succubus? What's that? We'll find out. All right. I got really lucky. My dad left me a shitty house in Texas, free and clear. It's shitty, not worth anything, but free house is the best house. Dude, that's amazing. Heck yeah. Can't argue with a free house. I'm like catching up on what you just said. I'm sorry. So I got all into narration mode, you know? That's awesome, though. In Texas, too. I like Texas. I've been to Texas quite a few times. Some of the best barbecue I've ever had was in Plano, Texas, which turns out, didn't know this was a thing, was a dry county, which means you cannot drink there. Well, it means you can't buy alcohol there, buy and sell alcohol there, which I didn't know was a thing. Apparently, all along like some of the southern route, what they call the Bible Belt, there's a whole bunch of dry counties, which I hadn't experienced before. We don't have dry counties in Washington State, and that was my only experience to that. Actually, I haven't really experienced it anywhere else other than Texas. There's probably other places too, but it was interesting. Anyways, super good barbecue. Some of the best barbecue I've ever had. Plano, Texas, man. Whew. Man, the ribs. I wish I could remember what that place was called. It was like this little like hole in the wall, as like most good places are, right? But they made like everything there, like the buttered rolls and the peach cobbler, and I mean all the barbecue stuff was great. Like I had to get the sampler platter with the sausage and the brisket and as you do. So good. That was a couple decades ago then. Yeah. Getting old. Anyways, back to another story about a very old gentleman. There used to be some here in Kentucky when I was little. Oh, okay. Yeah, Texas has a boozy reputation, but there are some dry counties. Yeah, I think there might have been like a college next to it too. That means we're going to be entering into an ad break here soon, so I'll pause on the narration real quick, let that go through, and then we'll come back to it when that's over. We're in it for 1 minute and 22 seconds, apparently, so we'll come back. Can't buy anything stronger than wine in my county. Oh, no. Well, I mean, you can always go the county over, is the thing. That's why I was like, it must just be some like weird like law artifact left over or something. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like you can always just drive the county over, and so what's the point of not having the availability there? Maybe there's a point that I'm missing, but I don't know. It's interesting though. That is the thing. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't. It's, yeah, I don't know. There's probably a reason, and I don't get it, but to each their own. I'm not poo-pooing on it. I'm just saying it's interesting to think about. I know, like and there's probably like most places in the United States, after like a certain time, you can't sell alcohol, period. You know, I think although I want to say in Washington State it was like something like 10 p.m. you couldn't sell alcohol past, something weird like that, unless it was like in a bar or something. But like the grocery stores, you couldn't like sell it after a certain time. I remember that when I was working as a kid in a retail store, being like, oh yeah, for whatever reason we couldn't sell it past a certain point of time. But I think that differs state to state too, though. Keeps people who so locals don't get too hammered. yeah, that could be why. Keeps people who stay in town all from getting too drunk. I mean, yeah, that's true. That's because then, you know, if you've had a certain amount of alcohol, you can't just drive and go get some more, right? You can't drive over to the next county, right? I guess, unless you had a designated alcohol buyer to go get you some. Maybe. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Remember Texas, so all kind of along like a certain path in the South, they have really big churches out there. And we used to jokingly call them Six Flags Over Jesus, because like some of these churches, if you haven't been there, they are huge, like just gigantic churches. Like, anyways, thought it was amusing. Six Flags Over Jesus. What would that amusement park be like? That'd be one, right? You could have like the Jonah Water Park ride, Noah's Petting Zoo. Ooh, like the Seven Deadly Sins, like maze, like fun maze kind of thing. You could have cool rides like The Betrayer, right? Anyway, I'm getting too much into that. I should get back to reading, but makes you think. Then you have like scripture in line while you wait. Anyways, back to this. Back to this. You only have 2 cops. That's a small town. That's a small town. I'm currently right outside of Sacramento, in a little town called Lincoln, in California. And there's more than 2 cops. Not too many, though. It is a small little town, but I want to say there's probably like 10 or so. But when anybody gets pulled over for anything, the entire police department is bored and they all show up. So it's like you drive by and you're like, if you're from out of town, I guess you'd be like, ooh, what'd they do? Nothing. They were probably speeding, or they rolled through a stop sign or something. Like, they're just bored. But there's nothing, which I guess is a good thing. There's nothing really ever going on in this town. So, but yeah, get 1 ticket and you'll meet the entire police department here. You know what I mean? So there's that. Yeah, it's a good thing. If you only have 2 cops, that's a good thing. It's a good thing. Hey, Leatherman, how's it going? What am I cooking up tonight? We just got done reading an article from Tumbleweird, which is a local kind of newspaper to Washington State, specifically in the Tri-Cities area, and they have this project that now I'm going to be a part of, where you read newspaper articles for those that are seeing impaired, which is a super cool thing. So we read something about a movie review about Gladiator 2 and what was it called? It was Sunset Road, which is like a local kind of film to that area. It kind of centers itself around Prosser, which is a little tiny town in Washington. If you haven't checked them out, actually, I've been lacking on this again, guys. I apologize. You should check out Mr. Leatherman Audio here. Did I do this right? I did not. There we go. He is also an audiobook narrator and fantastically talented, and also has some streams here on Twitch, so you can watch him live stream the narration as well. And a lot more experience than me. A lot better. And this other gentleman, which I'm sorry, I've been slacking. My apologies. Hearthside is also an audiobook narrator. 2 very talented narrators. You should definitely check out their channels. Send them a follow. for more narration goodness. Sounds like a great project and very fulfilling. It is, yeah. I'll be back tomorrow. Oh, sweet. Yeah, I've been trying to catch as many as I can. And while I do other stuff, at least having it on the background and listening, Yeah, absolutely, Harside. For sure. Not a problem there, buddy. I keep forgetting to do it. I keep forgetting, I can do that, I can shout other people out. But, yeah, absolutely. For sure. Absolutely. Well, let's jump back into the narration and see how many times I can flub it up. I think I missed a couple flubs, if we're being honest. Let's give ourselves an even 15. How about that? And then we'll just go from there. Okay. And then kids at home of appropriate age, if you're turning this into a drinking game, switch to water, because it's going to get ugly. Because I just finished my bourbon. Let's get back into it. As we continue the story and figure out from our detective of the supernatural, what is a succubus? Bum, bum, bum. Here we go. Chapter 2. A what? Asked Harver, shocked at the implications of something so far out of his range and understanding, or believing. A succubus, I repeated as seriously as I had the first time, and then began to explain. A succubus is another kind of demon, like the vampire. The succubus was created by Samael, better known today as Lucifer. They were once humans who were manipulated by Samael into trusting his lies, promised power or revenge or both, and chosen to become his bride in exchange for said promises. I'll refer to him. There's a typo. That's why I couldn't read that. That's supposed to be as. I'll refer to him as Lucifer for you, given that you're more familiar with that name. Actually, he chose 4 brides: Lilith, Iseth Zenonium, Agrat Bat Malat, and Namach. Wait a minute. Back up a second, Tarver said. All the names for the devil. Lucifer, Satan, Beelzebub, Old Scratch, etc., they're not the same person? No, I said. Lucifer and Satan are more like brothers, inseparable from the day they were created. They did everything together and everything the same way, so much so that the Creator often referred to them as 2 halves of the greatest angel he'd ever created. That is why, when they betrayed him, the Creator took it so hard. As for Beelzebub, he is one of the princes of hell. He is associated with one of the 7 deadly sins of envy. It is perhaps one of the reasons he too is confused with the devil, as it is said that Lucifer and Satan were envious of man, which is why they refused to bow and protect them as the Creator commanded. Why do the churches all teach that the devil is one creature and that he is known by so many different names? The term devil is often depicted as a demon. In fact, in some religious beliefs, they're the same thing. As you know, there are many demons in the plane of hell. As for the Lord of demons, that remains Lucifer. But Satan is said to be much more ruthless a leader and serves as Lucifer's face, as it were. In the stories of when Jesus took himself to the desert for 40 days and nights, the creature that attempted to tempt him was Satan. Satan has been front and center for much of what the world perceives as the devil. As for the other demons, they all serve within a hierarchy, much like angels. Those demons who were of the fallen are the most powerful. Many of them were archangels once upon a time, before turning from grace, but are now archdemons. Those that chose to remain in hell are princes of hell, each given dominion over their own little piece of the inferno, and are generals in Lucifer's army they call legion. For thousands of years, scholars, priests, and worshippers of all faiths, I continued, have attempted to understand the divine and the damned. What they didn't know, they made up. They told stories with such conviction that it became truth. After all, if a lie is told to someone who does not know any better, it is perceived as truth. That lie is then disseminated to others who also believe it to be true, and eventually the story that started out as a lie is turned into the truth. You've heard the saying that history is written by the winners of a battle or war? Yeah. Same concept. If no one knew the originator of the story, didn't have a clue what he was talking about, and was simply telling a story to either entertain or boost his own standing in the community, then no one knows any better, and the lie becomes truth. So, what you're saying is that someone many eons ago made up stories of angels and demons that are taught in church today? Not completely. They just made up answers to questions that were eventually asked to them when something new was introduced into the masses. Humans are a curious creature, and therefore they always questioned what they don't understand. Ethereal beings and supernatural creatures don't want everything about them to be known to the world, so they reveal very little. Those they reveal their stories and history to are so in awe of what they're hearing, they don't think to question anything. When they regurgitate the stories that they are told, that's when the questions are asked. So those telling the story simply make up the answers, and do so with such conviction that when they give their answers, they are believed as truth. I think I understand. So, back to what we were talking about. What can you tell me about these succubuses? Tarver asked. Succubi is the plural use of the term. They are somewhat like a vampire, except they don't necessarily feed on blood. With the exception of Lilith, they feed on humans through their essence or soul, their life energy, if you will. How can they do that? Primarily through emotions. Fear, hate, anger, love, sadness, power, lust. If you were to look up the term succubus, you would be told that they are demons of sexual desire. They feed through sexual intercourse, sucking their victims dry as they provide them pleasure. The truth is, that's only partly what they are. Truly, they are sexual creatures, and they do feed during sexual intercourse, but they're not confined to that method. You've heard of sirens? You mean those creatures who supposedly lured wayward sailors to their death by singing to them? Something like that, I said. Sirens are actually another form of succubi. Their song would lure ships of men to their doom as they became entranced by their song. Once their ships were broken against the shallow reef, they would feed until there was nothing left. Of those that were able to escape, they were few. Some succubi crave negative emotions such as fear, hate, anger, and sadness. Those succubi will feed on those emotions by eliciting them through various other methods. Others enjoy lust, love, joy, and power, thus eliciting those emotions through sexual intercourse. So, the sirens were actually succubi, and they fed on the sailors' emotions. Why were some seen and others weren't? Not were, but are, I said. Sirens still exist today. They just tend to hide better than they once did. As for why some were seen and others weren't, succubi feed from the shadows, from hiding, from behind closed doors. They are mostly sensual and sexual creatures, which makes it easier for them to feed without detection. If they were seen feeding, they would be hunted and wiped out, much like the nests of vampires were many times over the centuries. If their victims are killed, how do the stories get out? The stories of the siren were told by those captains smart enough not to give in to the tempting allure of the siren's song. Many would plug their ears with beeswax or some other concoction. They tied one crewman to the ship's mast the moment they found themselves around any kind of fog. If the poor soul tied to the mast heard the song, the captain would steer the ship away. Once they were safely away, the crewman would be released, though he would be utterly insane. No one can resist the pull of the siren's song without going insane. Okay, are there other species of succubi? Oh, yes. Remember I said there were 4 original succubi: Lilith, Iset Zeninim, Ag Rat Bat Machalat, and Namah. If I can get that right, there's a flub. Each has their own specific appetite. Those that produce offspring have the same appetite. Lilith was the first, but she wasn't the first succubus. I read that wrong. Flub. Lilith was the first, but she wasn't just the first succubus. She was also the first vampire, and the first woman created by God. Wait a minute. Eve was the first woman created by God? He argued. After their hand in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and his prophesied resurrection, the Catholic Church chose to take another look at their doctrine and began making sure that Jesus was forever associated with being nothing more than a divine being, incapable of the sins of man. When they began to change their core beliefs, when they began to change what they taught their followers, so too did the stories they preached. Trust me when I say Eve was not the first woman created, Lilith was. If Lilith was the first woman created, why don't we know more about her? Because of what she did. I don't understand. Lilith and Adam were created by God in the same manner, using the same clay, using the same power. Lilith was made to be Adam's partner in life, but was supposed to be subservient to him as God placed man above all. Adam was given dominion over the beasts of the earth. Lilith was told that her place was at his side, but also behind him. She was to support him in all things and do as he says, as though his word was God's. She refused, believing her place was by his side, not on her knees or before him or standing a step behind. For her insolence, the Creator cast her out of the garden, banning her from Eden. He then created Eve, using one of Adam's ribs in the creation, so that she would not only always be a part of Adam, but would have no issue submitting to Adam's rule. Interested, Tarver leaned into the desk as I continued my story. Feeling betrayed by Adam, angered at the Creator, Lilith turned to the one being she knew would understand her, Samael, or Lucifer. Lucifer took her into his confidence, told her what she wanted to hear, and promised her a life forever at his side. At this, he made her his first demon, calling her vampire. But at the time, the term wasn't quite defined. He took Lilith to his bed and sealed their bond together, giving her the power to do what she needed to do. For her revenge, Lucifer turned her into a serpent and sent her back into Eden. She tempted Eve with the forbidden fruit, then coerced her into tempting Adam. Upon the Creator's discovery of what Adam and Eve had done, he cast them from the garden to the plane of earth. Lilith was soon discovered, and for her treachery she was named Temptress. And she was not only cast out of the garden for the second time, but was cursed to wander the earthly plane as an outcast, a pariah, and forever live in darkness. As the temptress, Samael called her Succubus, his first. As this new creature, she would use her power to lure God's creation to her bed, feed upon them by drinking their blood, feeding on their essence of using emotions and love, lust, and fear. Tarver remained silent as I continued to the second succubus story. Aishith Zenonim, believed to be the youngest of Samael's wives, was once a queen of her nation, an area that became the land of Egypt. She ruled with a ferocity unlike any male monarch that followed. She took different lovers to her bed every night. If they failed to satisfy her, they were executed the following morning, their heads stuck on pikes outside her castle walls. One night, Samael came to her posing as a knight from a distant land. She took him to her bed that very evening, and during their fornication, Samael revealed his true self to her. She reveled in his power and agreed to become his second succubus. She was said to feed on man's desires, seducing them to her bed, and as she has sex with them, devoured their souls whole.
Sounds like every woman I've ever known,
Tarver deadpanned. It is her descendants that are known today as sirens, selkies, and mermaids, I said, ignoring the comment. After she was turned, Aishith continued to rule her kingdom for 1,000 years. In those days, once she exhibited godlike power, she was worshipped as one. Her appetite for flesh was insatiable, but eventually she moved on. This gave rise to the pharaohs. For a time, she served as consort to a few of the great pharaohs of the past. When she heard of the New World, she eventually found her way to the West.
The New World? Tarver said. You don't mean the United States?
Not specifically. She actually settled in South America when she finally made her journey. To my knowledge, she lived there for a number of years.
What of the others? He asked.
Agrat Bat Mahlat was the daughter of a once high-ranking commander in King David's army. The word Bat means daughter. Therefore, her name is Agrat, daughter of Mahlat. She is depicted as a lithe young woman with pale skin, an hourglass figure, and bright red hair. At age 16, her beauty was so great that at the first sight of her, a nobleman of the King David's court became so enraptured that he took her for his bride within only a couple of weeks. As the bride of this nobleman, she immediately took her role and ruled by whispering in his ear the names of the enemies she wished destroyed. Her ruthlessness and guile over the 6 years that followed, attracted her to Samael. Back then, it was common for noblemen and their wives to sleep separate from one another, each having their own space, apartments or rooms specifically for them. Each had many servants that served many different roles. The only time they shared the same bed was when they wished to have relations with one another.
You can say have sex. I'm not a 3-year-old, Tarver said.
Anyway, one evening when she was alone in her bedchambers, Samael came to her. He appeared in her room as his angelic form, tall, muscular, chiseled jaw, raven black hair that seemed to flow like the shadows, bright blue eyes and black wings spanning 6 or 7 feet on either side. He offered Agrat eternal life as his bride, should she be willing to dispose of her current husband. The next evening, she seduced her husband to her apartments. They engaged in sexual intercourse, and as he neared his climax, she plunged a dagger into his heart. With all the sexual excitement, the nobleman bled out in a matter of minutes. Samael appeared at the bedside a moment after death and took her departed husband. She peered up into his eyes and sealed her fate with a romp in the blood-soaked bed beside her deceased husband. Samael made her his third bride That night, as they climaxed, he breathed power into her, making her a succubus. She feeds on greed, lust, and power. Throughout history, she and her children continue to rule through surrogates of kings and leaders of nations, feeding on the souls of powerful over the spans of months and years before moving on to the next victim. Okay. I thought the ad started, but it was a warning that it's about to start. Okay. I was about, why didn't I hear the sound? Rip. Yep. Okay. I'm just realizing now that he straight records. I'm actually, funny enough, I'm not recording right now. I usually do punch and roll. But this evening I tried to set up stuff before stream to actually record it, but I was having some problems with like really bad latency. I still have to figure that out. So I'm actually going to go back and reread this and re-record it tonight. So this is kind of like a practice run for me tonight, just specially for you, just for the stream. It's like a warm-up. And then I can kind of, it'll be practice of these voices too, because as I was reading through the first time and kind of going through and prepping it, I was using and you've probably heard me slip up a couple of times. I was reading Detective Tarver as with a Southern accent. And then after touching base with the author for the first 15-minute check-in, he was like, nah, I want him to be more like Midwestern, serious Midwestern, but no Southern. So I keep wanting to slip into it. So it's a good trial run for me tonight, actually. So maybe when I sit down to record it later this evening, I'll do it correctly, right? But yeah. Damn, that's cold. I figured this was just for us fans. Yep. Latency with the feed into your cans. Yes. So when I hit record, when I hear what's returned to me from the pre-roll, it's actually ahead of that. So I'm hearing it delayed. So that when I start to narrate again, it's actually almost a full like 500 milliseconds out, almost a full half second after what I'm actually hearing, which leaves these huge gaps in my file. And if I try to jump the gun a little bit and start like speaking, like recording again before it, unfortunately the mic catches the audio a little bit and I get like a little echo right when I first start to talk, which is, that defeats the purpose. So I got to figure that out. But I think I figured out what I'm going to do. I have a little like, I have another set of cans that are wired, and then I have a cable that's like 50 feet long with a thing that kind of cleans that up a little bit because the signal kind of attenuates after a certain amount of length. But anyway, long story short, I have a wired pair that I can plug in with an extension cable that I can go directly into the interface and hear it directly as I'm recording into this thing. So I think I can eliminate that latency. Long story short, I guess. I'm over explaining this, but I think you get my drift. So I think I can resolve it. I just need to do that. So that's probably what I'm gonna do right after stream. Hook that up, do a couple test runs for a couple minutes recording, and then make sure that's going, and then actually sit down and record this thing again. And then I think too, as I'm recording this, I think the accent's coming across a little too strong and I need to pull back a little bit. I think I might intentionally miss a couple of the D's substituted for the TH sound, and I might just say the P sound instead of going to the B sound, which is not how Arabic or Egyptian would do it, or Arabic specifically, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to play around with it a little bit more. So this is actually kind of a good little warm-up for me. And we are now in the ad break. So there's no latency with direct monitoring, but rather with the DAW. Yes. Oh, yeah, it's definitely the wireless headphones. Yep. Yeah. It's because it's got to be... There's too much wireless going on, and I think that's just interfering with the signal, because it's probably on, 2.4 gigahertz, which a lot of wireless stuff is. Probably a lot of wireless stuff that I'm plugged into in this room. And I do have a split band going out of the actual wireless router from 5 to 2.4. So I know there's at least a little bit, half the channel strength coming out for that. So that to say, there's probably a lot of interference coming out of it, which is adding to the delay. And then maybe there's just a delay between like the settings that I have in the DAW as well, because if I try to go down too much, I get crackling in my headsets. So I can't have it too performant, if you will. I have to kind of have that specifically set in a certain way. Otherwise, it's terrible to re-listen to. So I think I just need to direct in. Long story short, direct in to some hardwired cans. I have some Sony, I think they're MH50s. They're good headphones. So I think I just need to do that. Direct instead of through software and out and in. Eliminate that. Can you hear your mic in your headphones? No. I cannot. I could turn that on, but that would throw me off because I would have that same delay. So I'd hear myself slightly after I said it. And I can't do that. Nope. It has to be close enough I can't perceive a delay, because otherwise I do that naturally. I don't know if you've heard me read this, but I don't need help there. That's for sure. I wouldn't be able to say anything. With wired plugged directly into your interface, there shouldn't be any delay. That's what I'm thinking, because it's directly into that same circuit that the microphone's plugged into. So I'd assume there'd be absolutely zero latency, right? So that's just all my problem. So I just didn't have time to test that before the stream started, So I will have that by next stream, though. So I can actually probably stream and record at the same time, which would be a very efficient use of my time. But this is good practice overall, though. Like, I'll get back in there. I also need to make a note of that one typo that's in here so I don't make that same stumble. So I need to go back and do that. But I'll try to remember to do that. All right, I think we're back from the ad break. Speaking of hearing what yourself read on a slight delay should be an Olympic test in concentration and willpower. No kidding, dude. I don't know. That's a good way to make me just not talk. It's so hard. I used to podcast a lot more than I do now. I just do one podcast at the moment about disc golf. If you're into that, the disc golf show. I don't know. Are you into books and disc golf? I'm your guy. But back when I first started podcasting, I used to do it that way. We'd like all sit around a table and I'd plug us all directly into just a recorder. And then I had an out from that recorder going to like a headphone amplifier, if you will, like a splitter. So I could plug us all in. We could all hear the same thing. I was using like a soundboard for little goofy effects or whatever. But I remember there being just a slight delay sometimes. It was like as the unit, because it was cheap, it was like $50 for this thing. As it like heated up, the delay would get more significant. I was starting to kind of get used to it though. Like where I could hear myself with just a slight delay, and I could just kind of, I think what I did is I compensated and just talked louder so I could barely hear myself. You know what I mean? Like, why is he yelling all of a sudden? This is how I talk. Like Samuel L. Jackson. Haven't you seen my movies? Deep Blue Sea? Anyways, let's dive back into this. When the ad started, I think we were down to, how she got her power as the third wife of Samael, or Lucifer, which was pretty brutal, I will say. Let's continue on. I don't think there's very much left of the chapter 2, so we're almost done with it. But let's continue. That's pretty graphic, Tarver said with disgust written across his face. Wait, you mean they hide in plain sight? In a manner of speaking, I said. Agrat and her children are visible, but typically behind or beside their victim. They've turned to hide their skills much better over the years, targeting not only the wealthy and powerful men and women, but also men and women who are along in age and may not already have certain health conditions. So, when their victim dies, the deaths are chalked up to natural causes and never really examined much further than that, Tarver said. Precisely. So, what about this fourth one? What can you tell me about Nama? Nama. There's like way too many A's in that word. Nama. Ever heard the ghost story of the woman in white? I asked. Yeah, it's an urban legend, not real. Wait, you're not going to tell me it's real, are you? In a way, I said. The fourth of Samael's brides has always had mysterious origins. Many believed she was once an angel, one that fell when Lucifer and Satan rebelled against the Creator, who, upon her fall, took human men as lovers, only as an effort to gain favor with Lucifer, whom she'd always admired and desired to be with. It is also believed that what finally made Lucifer agree to take her as one of his brides was because she had whispered in my ear the evils that drove me to kill Abel, my brother. Others believe she was one of my daughters, one who felt abandoned during my early years following my curse, when I'd had to leave my family abruptly because the mark compelled me to continue wandering the earth. Others believed her to be a spinster who never knew love, was not pretty, and cursed all men for shunning her. When Lucifer turned her into a succubus, she immediately grew beautiful and desirable for the first time in her life, and her bitterness caused her to seek revenge on all the men that shunned or ridiculed her. Which is true? None, I said. In truth, Namach had been married, was a beautiful woman that glowed with happiness during her life with him. 2 years into their marriage, she had still not been able to bear him children. One night, deep in the early morning hours, a group of raiders crossed into their land and attempted to steal their horses and a few sheep for slaughter. The sheep alerted her husband, who attempted to stop them, only to be struck down and killed. In her terror, Namach, dressed in nothing but a white gown, alerted the men to her presence as she stood screaming in the doorway of the house. The men caught her, raped her repeatedly, and beat her into unconsciousness. They pulled her from the home where they assaulted her and lay her body beside her husband. They then torched her home, took all the animals they could. Rustle, and left Nama to die from her injuries. When she woke and looked at the aftermath of what the strangers had done, she cursed them, cursed any and all the gods, anyone who ever believed in, for not protecting her, and swore her vengeance. Samael visited her within seconds of the muttering of her curse. He promised her the power she sought, not only to get her revenge, but to never be a victim again. Upon agreeing to his terms, Samael took her from that place and consummated their union within the confines of his palace in hell. Namach became his fourth bride, and the fourth and final succubus of his creation. Okay, so how is it that she became known as the woman in white? Asked Tarver. Was it because of the white nightgown she was wearing when that happened to her? I'm getting to that, I said, begging patience. Upon her return to the mortal plane, Namach hunted the men that took her husband from her, those that dared defile her body and left her to die. Namach hunted in the dead of night, keeping to the darkness as much for anonymity as for courage to do what was needed. When she came upon them, they were sleeping soundly around the campfire, dressed in nothing but the same white gown she'd worn the night before. She entered the camp and approached one of the men. She woke him with a gentle hand across his cheek. As he opened his eyes and found her standing over him, he became nervous and started to alert his companions. She stopped him by holding one finger up to her lips. and using the sensual powers of the succubus she now was, enticed him to remain silent. She then used that same finger to gesture for him to follow as she began to turn and walk into the darkness. Not quite believing what was happening and thinking possibly that he was still dreaming, the man stood and followed Namach away from the camp and into the darkness. Once he came upon her, he reached for her arm, and upon his touch she smoothly turned around and manifested herself into her demonic form. What was that? She had long, black, and silky hair, pale ashen skin, horns like goat horns jutted from her skull and at least a foot in length. In her eyes were black as night as she stared into his, and large bat-like wings protruded from her back. The man was taken so off guard by the sudden change, he fell back a step or two and tripped over his own feet. He fell to the ground, and within seconds, Namach was atop him. His fear was nourishment to her, and she drank it in as though it was the golden nectar of the gods. As she fed upon him, upon his life force, his body began to wither and crumble as though he were growing 10 years older for each second that she fed upon him. When she finished, he was nothing more than a skeleton, with ashen skin covering his bones, but no life remained. That's what our victims look like, Tarver said, interrupting. Continuing my story, I said, Namach would turn to the camp and over the course of a couple of hours performed this task one at a time to each man until they were all nothing but ashen bodies on the ground. Throughout history, Namach has been seen in various locations around the world, appearing like a phantom in the night, coaxing her victims to her through her natural beauty and her demonic allure. Tales of her visits spread throughout villages, towns, and cities, and countries like wildfire. And soon she became legend, a legend simply known as the Woman in White. Silent for several long minutes, Detective Tarver took in the stories I just told him, processing each independently as he chose to accept them as truth or fantasy. How is it that you know all of this? He finally asked. Because I have met each of them in my long life. None can or would harm me because of the mark, but each has taken me into their confidence and told me their tale. And you believe them? I had no reason not to, I said. They were, after all, succubi. That much of their story was true for sure. I have no reason to believe they would lie about their origins. Silent for a heartbeat, Tarver said, You said that some of the succubi had children. How is that possible if they're demons? They weren't always demons, I said. Making them demons would not have taken away their ability to procreate. In fact, as sexual creatures, it would stand to reason that procreation would be inevitable. But you said not all of them had children. You are correct, I said. Lilith had only one child, though some scholars may say differently, as they believe Lilith to be the mother of demons. That theory is just absurd, as demons were created by the twisted souls of man and the fallen. Lilith's child was born naturally, but she was never able to carry another. Instead, through her blood, more vampires were created from humans. Namach refused to have children, though she also believed herself to be barren, given she wasn't able to give children to her husband during their lives together. More than that, she didn't want to be a mother after her own beloved husband had been murdered. She feeds primarily on fear, depression, loathing, and sadness. Fear, depression, loathing, and sadness. Though she uses her power of seduction to lure her victims away from any that may hear their screams, she never tries to use sexual intercourse for her feedings. Aisheth and Agrat, as I've mentioned, have both gave birth to children. I understand that what I described to you in reference to the victims Namach made that night, she took her revenge. What? I understand that what I described to you in reference to the victims Namach made that night, she took her revenge, that your victims appeared the same. The truth is that all succubi have the ability to feed wholly from their victims, leaving them nothing more than a husk by morning, or sparingly, draining them little by little that extends for days, weeks, months, or even years if they wish. Can they be killed? Excellent question, I said. Like vampires, succubi are believed to be immortal, but as I've explained to my goddaughter many times, immortality is a myth. Well, wait a minute, he said. How can immortality be a myth? You're immortal. I'm not immortal, I corrected. I'm simply very difficult to kill, so long as I bear the mark placed upon me by the Creator. What's the difference? You can't be killed. Oh, but I can be killed. When the Creator deems it my time, then, on that day, the mark will no longer protect me. In fact, I'm quite certain it will no longer exist. In the meantime, I must endure. Immortality is the lie that the fallen have told humans for millennia to portray themselves as gods, to encourage blind devotion, and to even create demons such as vampires, succubi, and other such creatures. Demons promise immortality in exchange for the souls of man. No being save the Creator is truly ever immortal. They're simply more difficult to kill or destroy. Some require cursed or blessed weapons. Some require weapons forged and imbued with the powers of an ethereal or supernatural being. Some can only be killed by another ethereal or supernatural being of equal or greater power. Creatures such as vampires can be killed by direct sunlight, decapitation, or staked through the heart with a blessed object made of either silver or wood. Succubi can be killed by decapitation or by means of a blessed weapon. So, of the 4 succubi and their offspring, which one do we look at as a possible candidate for what happened here? Well, Lilith is out. She had only the one natural child, as I said, but both are dead. Her daughter at the hands of her own creation, and Lilith by mine. Namach is out, as this is not her modus operandi. She's been able to stay under the proverbial radar for so long that her kills resemble more medically defined deaths than murder. Oh, that sentence is a doozy. Let's try that again. She's been able to stay under the proverbial radar for so long that her kills resemble more medically defined deaths than murder. That leaves either Aisheth or Agrat, or one of their offspring, Tarver said, attempting his best to pronounce each name correctly. I can't believe what we're talking about here. I can tell you it's not one of either of their offspring, I said, choosing to ignore the comment. How can you tell? Because of the kills. The kills? Yes, succubi are very powerful beings, but none of them more powerful than the original, the brides of Samael. They've spent millennia covering their tracks, evolving from the mindless killing machines they once were, in order to preserve their own lives. Unlike their mothers, most succubi and incubi live as a community. They hunt together, feed together, and live together or near one another. The succubus responsible for these kills hunted alone. No, this is definitely one of the original brides. Okay, I'll take your word for it, but which one? I think Egrat is out, I said after a few minutes of thought. This isn't her M.O. either. Her victims are always powerful men in positions of authority, such as kings, leaders of nations, or even the chief executive officer of a company. Not only that, but Agret tends to prolong her feeding on the victim for periods of times these days. So, that leaves Aisheth. Unfortunately, yes, I said. Why do you say unfortunately? Aisheth has always been a seeker of power and pleasure. The old saying of not mixing business with pleasure certainly does not apply to her. Unlike Aisheth, her children are very impulsive and get bored rather quickly and easily, which is why I know it's not one of them. They don't stay this long. They would get their fill and leave by now. No, she wants something. She wants something. It's almost as if she's looking for me and trying to draw me out, much like Asmodeus and Saminga did a few months ago. Sitting back in his chair, Michael Tarver put both of his hands on his chest, steepling his fingers as he contemplated all that he had just heard, before saying, You said you've met each of them before, talked with them, and even gained their confidence, so much so that they've revealed their histories to you. It seems to me there may be more to that than you're letting on. Why do you think this Aisheth is seeking you out specifically? Choosing to remain silent, I let the question linger in the air for a couple of minutes before saying, To best answer your question, I need to find her. To be sure it's her. How do we do that? I need to see everything for myself, I said. When can we start? There we go. End of chapter 2. And I think I've worked out a couple things in my head that I want to do a little differently. But there you go. There you go. All right, let's go back to, let me catch up with chat just a little bit, see what you guys are saying. It's like singing on stage or playing with a delay. It's impossible. Yeah, right? Screaming to drown out your own voice. That's right. I'm going to play some games, man. Awesome. See you later. I'll catch you. Sounding good, though. Metal as shit. Have a good night. Have a good night. Who's? You're still at it? Yes, I'm still at it. Going all night. I've decided, you know what? I'm going to read this entire book out loud to all of you before I sit down. And no, I'm not going to do that. I'm done right now. We're going to go back to the desk and talk for a little bit. And then we're going to go raid someone. Maybe another reader. We'll see. We'll take a look. We'll peruse, if we will. And we'll go from there.
My God,
that's
are you
the wrong
still
button.
Talking?
I am still talking. Don't get lippy. We're going to go back to the... what? Oh, sorry. There's this button. Here we go. I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional idiot. Good story so far, I think. Chapter 2 is a lot longer than I remember, too. There's a lot of explanation in there that breaks down all the things. The story picks up pretty quickly after that, though. We go on the hunt to see which bride of Lucifer it is that's been doing all these killings. And if you'd like to figure out where to get that book, I'll leave a link here for you. But who says first? Johnny and the Albino needs an adventure. Yeah, he does. So Who's and myself have been playing some Grand Theft Auto online on an RP server, doing some role play. I'm practicing different accents and different character styles doing that. So it's been a lot of fun. So I think I might dive into that after this. We'll see. Kind of want to dive into the audiobook. I don't know. I could be convinced to probably do a little bit of role play for a bit and then maybe jump into the audiobook as well. So right after that. So we'll see. The night is young, but one thing is for sure. We're gonna close down the stream. We're gonna end it here though. A little bit more of that, I think. Just a little bit more. Hopefully you've enjoyed the stream so far. If you've stuck around, thank you so much. I can't say thank you enough. I don't know what we ended up flubs on, but there's quite a few, I think. There's quite a few. I lost count. Lost count. I didn't have you here who's to keep me accountable. What can I say? What can I say? It's late. The night is not young. It's young. It's young. I'm usually up to like 2, 3 a.m. anyways. It's young for me. Go ahead and throw 10 more since I was not here. It's being nice. I think there was more than that. Well, we'll just say 10. We'll just say whatever the count is now. We'll just set 10, and that'll be the official count for the night. We're done with all the narration. Yeah, all right. Give ourselves a pat on the back. We're done. It's been a great evening. Thank you all again for joining me. I'll be back probably next Wednesday. Will probably be the next one. I was thinking about maybe doing one this Friday. It depends. If I can get my issues worked out, which I do need to spend a little bit of time after this doing that. If I can get those issues worked out, then maybe we'll do another one on Thursday or Friday, but for sure next Wednesday. I'm probably going to do another, well, I'll leave it up to a mystery. Come see me next Wednesday, and then you'll know what I'm going to be reading. So I think that one's going to be kind of a fun one too. But we're going to try to do maybe some live narration and actually record it on next Wednesday. So that'll be cool. I'll get to work out all the kind of stuff for that going into there. So we'll see. Let's take a look real quick at who's on Twitch. And it says I have another ad break, and I'm going to skip that because we're just going to go right into rating somebody. So I'm going to snooze that thing. Snooze for 5 minutes. That'll give me enough time. That's fine. Let's find somebody, shall we? Oh, I can't do it that way, though. Go back. Okay. I have to bring up a whole nother thing and go to Twitch. There's got to be like a smoother way to do this. I'll figure it out one of these days. Let's see. There's so many people. Let's look through the list of friends. Who's on right now? And we'll go raid one of them. And if not, we'll look for somebody interesting. Oh, man. There's a gentleman, and I'm tempted to stream to throw you guys over there because he's a very interesting individual. He's playing Fortnite right now, but he dresses like a lobster. You heard me right. He dresses up like a lobster, and that in and of itself is pretty entertaining. But let's see who else we got. Oh, okay. No. I know where I'm going to send you. We're going to go over to a gentleman that I just met through kind of going on this streaming thing. It's Valencia Glass, and he's in Makers and Crafting right now, and he's literally a glass blower that streams. And the stuff that he creates is stupid cool. Dude's very, very talented. Master of his craft, obviously. And it's super fascinating to watch. I don't know if you guys like find that stuff kind of fascinating too. I do. And just he's constantly kind of telling you what he's doing. He's very entertaining too. He's got the whole streaming thing down, that's for sure. But dude, the stuff that he makes is super cool. I don't know why I find glass blowing like so interesting. I used to watch that. Have you ever watched the show on what was it on? Was it Discovery? Or it might not even have been Discovery. It might have been. Anyways, where it was like the contest, you know, like the metal workers have the contest, but it was like glass blowers, and they're all competing to, you know, go through one of those things to who's the best glass blower or whatever. I can't remember the name of the show, but I watched like the whole thing. Anyways, let's send you over there because that person's super, super interesting. You have to see it. You play Samurai Darth Vader. Oh, you just got done playing Fortnite? That's right. You said you went to, yeah. Well, we're not going to go Fortnite. I think we're going to go glass blowing because that kind of want to watch it stream a little bit, you know? Did I get that right? VALENCIA glass. Yes. Okay. Boom. Raid has been created. I got it right this time. Thank you so much for everybody that stuck around and listened to me power through that. And I will see you guys, if you choose to follow, over to Valencia Glass. I'll stick around for just a little bit, and then I'm going to wrap some stream stuff up. So good to see you over there. Thank you, Harsan, for joining me. Good show. Thank you. And I'll catch you on your next one, too, if I can. trying to catch everybody that I can as I go through stuff, you know. But anyways, we'll see you over there. Ta-ta for now. Bye-bye.
Welcome in. I was honestly a little bit flustered about how big of a stream we had last night and how much fun it was, and then we just had a whole other